Deep in the quiet of the high desert, a persistent, maddening drone permeates the air, audible only to a select few. It is often described as the faint, distant rumble of a diesel engine idling just out of sight, yet no engine is ever found. This is not a ghost story or a local legend, but a thoroughly documented acoustic anomaly that has baffled acousticians, medical professionals, and skeptical researchers for decades. The verifiable reality of this sound is etched into the lives of those who cannot escape it, forcing science to confront the very limits of human perception. The epicenter of this acoustic enigma is Taos, New Mexico. Reports of a mysterious, low-frequency hum began surfacing in the early 1990s, transforming this serene artistic community into ground zero for an unprecedented scientific puzzle. Residents, initially believing the noise was a personal ailment or a localized nuisance, soon discovered they were not alone. A distinct subset of the population, roughly 2%, was registering a continuous droning vibration that seemed to resonate through their skulls rather than merely enter their ears. What elevated this from a curious local rumor to a matter of national scientific inquiry was the sheer consistency of the reports. The selective audibility of the sound was its most perplexing, verifiable trait. Two people could stand in the exact same silent room. One would be driven to distraction by the relentless buzzing, while the other would hear absolutely nothing. Driven by mounting public distress and the involvement of the United States Congress, a formal task force was assembled to investigate the anomaly. In 1993, researchers from the University of New Mexico, Los Alamos National Laboratory, and Sandia National Laboratories descended upon the town. They brought with them an arsenal of highly sensitive equipment, including seismographs, magnetometers, and advanced acoustic sensors capable of detecting the faintest whispers of the physical world. The objective was straightforward: isolate the frequency, pinpoint the geographic source, and silence the disturbance. The results of this rigorous deployment were entirely unexpected. Despite placing microphones in the homes of the most severely affected individuals and measuring the ambient environment with extreme precision, the instruments failed to capture any unusual acoustic signals. The scientific studies yielded a frustrating paradox. The machines registered a standard, quiet desert environment, yet the human subject standing right beside the equipment continued to report the oppressive, low-frequency drone. Faced with a lack of external acoustic data, researchers first turned their attention to the surrounding infrastructure. The initial hypothesis centered on industrial machinery, high-pressure gas pipelines, distant mining operations, and the hum of high-voltage power lines were all scrutinized. It is a well-documented fact that low-frequency sound waves can travel immense distances, penetrating solid walls and propagating through the earth far more effectively than higher pitches. Geological activity offered another plausible explanation. The region sits near the Rio Grande Rift, a major tectonic feature where the Earth's crust is actively pulling apart. Microseisms, the faint, continuous tremors generated by tectonic stress or even distant ocean waves crashing against the continental shelf, can sometimes translate into acoustic energy. Yet the seismographs deployed during the investigation detected no localized geological vibrations that correlated with the onset or the intensity of the reported noise. The profound failure to find an external, environmental source forced a radical shift in the investigation. If the desert was truly silent, the origin of the anomaly had to lie within the hearers themselves. The mystery evolved from a problem of physics to a complex puzzle of human biology and neurology. Medical professionals began to explore the intricacies of the human auditory system, focusing on a phenomenon known as autoacoustic emissions. In rare cases, the inner ear can actually generate its own continuous sound, a byproduct of the tiny hair cells in the cochlea vibrating spontaneously. Furthermore, human hearing sensitivity is not uniform. A small fraction of the population possesses a verified heightened sensitivity to extremely low frequencies, allowing them to detect ambient sounds that remain completely imperceptible to the majority. This biological angle naturally led to the diagnosis of tinnitus, a common condition characterized by a ringing or buzzing in the ears without an external source. Many skeptics and medical professionals concluded that the affected residents were simply suffering from a shared, perhaps age-related, auditory dysfunction. The high altitude and dry air of the region were even proposed as environmental triggers that might exacerbate a latent physiological condition. However, categorizing the experience merely as conventional tinnitus ignores several verifiable inconsistencies. Sufferers consistently reported that the noise possessed a distinct directional quality, a characteristic entirely absent in typical internal auditory conditions. Even more inexplicably, many individuals claimed the sound would completely vanish when they traveled away from the region, only to return the moment they crossed back into the town limits. Internal biological conditions do not typically respect municipal borders. To understand the isolated nature of this event, researchers began comparing it to similar acoustic anomalies recorded globally. The phenomenon is not entirely unique. Similar low-frequency disturbances have been documented in places like Bristol in the United Kingdom and Kokomo, Indiana. By analyzing these parallel cases, scientists hope to find a common denominator that might illuminate the dark corners of the southwestern mystery. The Kokomo incident provided a fascinating contrast. In that specific instance, rigorous acoustic testing eventually identified a verifiable external source, a pair of massive industrial cooling fans at a local manufacturing plant and an air compressor at a nearby foundry. When these specific machines were modified or shut down, the oppressive noise plaguing the residents ceased entirely. The resolution in Indiana only deepened the puzzle in New Mexico. Despite exhaustive searches, no equivalent industrial smoking gun has ever been found in the high desert. The stark absence of heavy manufacturing or massive cooling towers in the immediate vicinity left the primary external theory without any supporting evidence. The comparison highlighted a chilling reality. Whatever was happening in the Southwest was fundamentally different. As traditional acoustics and biology failed to provide a complete answer, more unconventional scientific theories gained traction. One prominent hypothesis involves the interaction between electromagnetic radiation and the human nervous system. The microwave auditory effect, a verified phenomenon where specific radio frequencies can induce the perception of clicks or buzzing within the human head, was proposed as a potential mechanism. The Earth is constantly bathed in a complex web of electromagnetic energy, both natural and artificial. Extremely low frequency, or ELF, waves are used by military installations for submarine communication because they can penetrate deep into the earth and oceans. Proponents of this theory suggest that a specific subset of the population might possess a physiological sensitivity to these waves, inadvertently acting as human radio receivers for a globally transmitted signal. Yet, bridging the gap between theoretical physics and verifiable evidence remains a monumental hurdle. While the microwave auditory effect is real, there is absolutely no empirical data demonstrating that the ambient electromagnetic fields in the region are strong enough, or of the correct frequency, to induce a continuous low-frequency drone in a selective population. The measurements taken during the initial task force investigation showed no anomalous electromagnetic spikes. The relentless nature of the sound, combined with the lack of a definitive scientific explanation, inevitably took a severe psychological toll on the hearers. Sleep deprivation, chronic anxiety, and a profound sense of isolation became common among the affected. This widespread distress led some psychologists to propose mass psychogenic illness as a contributing factor, suggesting that the intense media coverage and community anxiety might be causing hypervigilance, leading people to fixate on ordinary background noise. This psychological framework posits that the anomaly is less about a unique physical sound and more about how the brain filters and interprets sensory information. The nocebo effect, where the expectation of a negative symptom actually causes the physiological manifestation of that symptom, could explain why the reports clustered so tightly. Once the idea of the noise was introduced to the community, the brain's natural pattern recognition software began amplifying mundane acoustic data into a perceived threat. Yet, dismissing the phenomenon entirely as a psychological construct ignores the fundamental limitations of our own scientific instrumentation. Microphones and sensors are calibrated to replicate the average human hearing range and detect specific pressure changes in the air. If the disturbance operates on a physical principle outside these highly specific parameters, or if it involves a method of sensory input that bypasses the tympanic membrane entirely, our most advanced machines would be completely blind to it. This realization forces a profound philosophical reevaluation of how we define empirical truth. We rely heavily on objective measurement to validate human experience. When a machine fails to record what a human being clearly perceives, the immediate scientific instinct is to doubt the human, but the persistent, verifiable suffering of the hearers suggests that our technological proxies for reality might be far less comprehensive than we believe. Over the decades, the initial media frenzy surrounding the acoustic anomaly has faded, but the sound itself has not. The early 1990s marked the beginning of public awareness, but historical records and anecdotal accounts suggest the drone may have been present, albeit less publicized, long before the scientific task force arrived. It has become a permanent, unseen fixture of the landscape for those unfortunate enough to perceive it. The enduring puzzle still looms large over the scientific community. Despite advances in acoustic engineering, neurology, and environmental science, the core contradiction remains unresolved. We have a verifiable cohort of individuals experiencing a debilitating sensory input and a complete absence of measurable physical data to explain the origin of that input. The gap between experience and evidence has never been successfully bridged. Investigating this verifiable acoustic phenomenon ultimately reveals more about the boundaries of human knowledge than it does about the sound itself. It stands as a humbling reminder that the natural world still harbors mysteries that can slip right through the meticulously crafted nets of modern science. The selective audibility of the drone challenges our assumption that reality is a shared, uniform experience. The phantom noise continues to vibrate through the high desert, a low-frequency hum that defies explanation and demands our intellectual curiosity. It is a testament to the strange complexities of human perception and a permanent challenge to the scientific method. Until our instruments can match the enigmatic sensitivity of the human mind, the true source of this sound will remain hidden in the silent, vibrating air, an enduring masterpiece of the verifiable strange.